views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming back again this week to Doing It with Styles. I have a very, very special couple of guests here. Some old friends, of course, Christine Essex. Most of you who know me know Christine. And I got to tell you, I love the hair.
Thanks, John.
Because it's such a change from the last time I saw you.
It was a little short,
Yeah,
right?
and it really becomes you. Looks very, very nice.
Thanks, John.
So, and also we have Mary Langdon.
Yes,
And
thank you.
we're here today to talk about the wealth of natural health for brain injury awareness and education. So how did all of this come about, Christine? What got you involved in this?
Well, for me, my son had an injury, we'll call it,
Right.
in September of 2016, to where he lost his blood.
It was
like
really
14
that long
units.
ago?
Yeah, it's been
Holy
since
crap.
16. So, from the loss of blood and oxygen, he got a anoxic brain injury.
Okay.
And the anoxic brain injury, plus he was a right leg amputee.
Right.
He was basically arrived at the hospital DOA and
Right.
died 5 times.
I remember it was 2 or 3 times when we thought.
Right. Total of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was my little walking miracle, got him through all that when
Yep.
we were together. Thank goodness you were there, to be honest. So I think I called you, John, as I'm sitting here thinking. I called John on the day I was lost. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yes, I do.
I was getting tears in my eyes.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I was lost. I couldn't figure out how to get from one hospital to the next.
I know.
And John's like, it's okay. Just go this way. And he got me
my
there.
gosh.
Yeah, that was crazy. So anyway, he survived, and with the brain injury, though, being anoxic, a lot of people are used to TBI, which is traumatic brain injury,
Right.
which is like a bunk on the head, or something happens to where they actually have impact.
The
correct?
brain moves.
Yeah.
Yeah, this 3-pound
Right.
brain moves within the skull.
Auto accidents, combat, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Actually-
Explosions, yeah.
Cycling is the #1 brain
Really?
injury, and you wouldn't think that. You would think football or other sports.
Yeah.
Cycling is actually the #1 brain injury. Not
Whoa.
car accidents are way down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, or they haven't learned to test for them
Exactly.
correctly yet
Right.
during car accidents, because I was in one too that took 4 years to recover. So anyways, during that time, I was blessed to meet Mary. Mary even came over and brought me some supplies and stuff for Ricky, but I got to walk through all of the stages of his recovery with him,
Right.
and began to realize where, as a community, we were lacking in
Big time.
services. Yeah. And so when Mary will tell you her story, because she's survived a brain injury as well a few times in her life, and it's an interesting story. Though,
Wait, a few times?
Multiple brain injuries.
Whoa.
My first one, do you want me to go ahead?
go
or are you
ahead,
done?
yeah.
Okay, my first one was when I was 14. I was actually riding horses with some friends.
Okay.
I was thrown off of the horse into a telephone pole, smacked. I was out cold for several hours. My mother was a nurse. She was called, and they said, just bring her home. I was about an hour away from home. Bring her home and I'll examine her. And she did. And all I remember at that point is she kept saying, Mary, you can't fall asleep. You can't fall asleep, Mary, don't fall asleep. So I remember being awake for, a while. And I knew some things had changed after that, but I didn't know enough on how to explain it to her or ask questions or that type of thing.
You
So
mean you
it's
felt differently?
I felt different.
Things weren't right? Or?
Right. And I didn't know how to say anything. And I was never diagnosed or treated, never taken to the hospital, because she was a nurse. She figured in those days you didn't run to the hospital. You didn't have insurance like you have today.
Exactly.
So that was almost 50 years ago.
Wow.
So I went through my entire life and always knew that there was something wrong, something wasn't quite right, and didn't know what.
So at that point, you had never gone to the hospital for
Never.
that particular
Right.
incident?
Never diagnosed or treated. went throughout my whole life, and I look back when I was tested within the last 3 years, and actually it was more like 3-4 years ago. And they asked me, have you ever had a brain injury before? I was like, no, I don't think so. And then they started asking more questions, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, you know what? I've had multiple brain injuries. And when I told them about it, they said, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, come to find out, the first brain injury actually caused more damage within my brain. I lost part of my hearing. The human body is such an amazing thing that I actually started reading lips and didn't realize it because of my hearing loss. And the sensor in my ear that sends messages to my brain was affected, so I processed things a little bit slower. And I always kind of wondered, but I was always a go-getter and always, swimming out to sea to find, what that was that I needed to achieve. And then I had a car accident about 6 years ago, and it was a mild one to where I had whiplash in my head, front and back. So that's what caused the many thousands of dollars of testing that I went through. And that's where they found the multiple brain injuries, and then this last one. But like I said, the human body is such an amazing thing. I always knew I had to be in front of somebody to see their eyes and see their movement of their mouth and see their body language. And that was my body compensating for over 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's absolutely amazing. And to kind of finish out my story, I searched and searched and searched this town. I've been here for over 40 years, and there's nothing here. And the only thing that I found was a brain injury support group at Nevada Community Enrichment Program. So I started going to that brain injury support group, and the first time I was there, I felt like I'd found a home. People that understood what I had been through. None of my family was really that supportive. At one point,
And I'm sorry, how long ago was this?
50 years ago for my first brain
Right,
injury,
but I mean,
but then 6 years ago for the car accident.
Okay, and then how long after that before you found this group?
The group was 3 years in after
Okay.
the car accident. So the group ran for about 3 years that I attended. The lady, Michelle Hines, who's actually a licensed marriage and family counselor now, and she's gone out on her own.
Right.
She always was very encouraging. She said, you always bring such good educational information to our group. She says, you need to start leading it. And so I did, and she just let me go with it. Well, then she left in INSEP to Nevada Community Enrichment Program, lost their grant, and so they decided not to continue the support group. And it was like, that's my perfect time to actually do this. And I've been wanting to do something with brain injury, because it's like, where is all of this help? We have this huge town. I've seen it grow. There was nothing.
What about the Cleveland Institute over here?
They don't do brain injuries. They don't do traumatic brain injuries.
I thought
TBI.
that was their whole,
Exactly.
We
thought so
too. And
Yep.
I took Ricky there, and they were of no help whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's such an amazing thing. I've talked to so many people, and they were just like blown away that, wait a minute, Cleveland Clinic doesn't do anything with TBIs? It's like, no, they do everything for Alzheimer's, strokes, MS, Parkinson's.
Yeah,
Dementia.
that's how I've worked with them, through the Parkinson's.
Yeah, and those are brain injuries,
Yeah.
but they're not TBIs.
But those aren't really brain injuries, are they?
They are. They affect the brain.
No, but
Everything.
they're not injuries in what we would
They're
consider.
acquired.
They're
They're not.
they're a disease or
No, actually, they are.
Deterioration.
It affects the brain because that's the
Right.
the central nervous system, and so everything that is controlling your body comes from the brain.
Right.
And
But my point is, it's not due to, that's something that you acquire or you're born with. It's not due to an impact
Right.
or something like that. So
Well, it's
right?
due to like a stroke or
Right.
or like in MS
Right, like
or
Parkinson's
the
or
others. It's a
something, yeah.
deterioration, but the brain is
Right.
affected and then causes. So
But I mean, wouldn't
they
that-
specialize in that.
And you would think that they would be the perfect.
You-
I mean,
They're the #2 brain hospital in the world. So
Right.
you would think, and from my understanding, they used to do something with it. So I don't know what's actually happened. I've never been able to talk to somebody about it, because everybody I've talked to is always a dead end. But there is a new doctor, Dr. Mark Hyman, who has actually just recently become the CEO, the new CEO, and he's all about pharmacy health, which is basically functional medicine
Right.
instead of giving somebody a prescription, which I'm all about too. And my mother even was teaching me this stuff years ago. So I'm like, hooray, we finally are getting something like this in our community. And so I have been unable to talk to him, but I've taken a lot of his programs that he's had, or his seminars and that type of thing, which I would love to be able to talk to him. I have his number. I just have not had the time to talk to him, but he is on my agenda. So, and I think he would be able to help us or lead us in a little bit different direction. And maybe, who knows, like
Yeah.
Dignity Health Rehabilitation Hospital was so unbelievably encouraging when I met with them about me starting their support group, their brain injury support group. So I was just like, yes, you know. So it's starting to kind of come around, but it's very slow in this community. And from my understanding, Dignity Health Rehabilitation Center will not be up to speed for about 1.5 years.
Right.
But they have all the latest and greatest of testing, unbelievable neurofeedback, gym, you know, this type of thing. They have the computer programs that shows that the brain's actually what they do, you know, and how it makes the body move. And Christine might be able to talk a little bit more about this. She understands, and some of it I'm forgetting because I do have short-term memory issues sometimes. Not sometimes, but all the time. But sometimes I remember things
Right.
a little bit better.
I understand.
And then I have cognitive issues too. But other than that, I've been able to get this going, and I've actually been working on it for over 1 year. And Christine just approached me about becoming a co-founder with me, and I was absolutely ecstatic because I had actually met Ricky in the inpatient at INSEPT. I was there doing some public speaking,
Oh,
so
wow.
I met him, but I never put the two together until one day she called me, and I went, "Why is Christine Essex calling me?" And then it was like click, click.
She was over at Luminosity.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
few times.
a few times
so
for different
we
programs.
never really had met or crossed paths.
Well,
Yeah.
you couldn't have
During
asked
that
for a
time.
better co-founder.
Absolutely.
Believe
Thanks,
me.
John.
Yeah.
When she approached me about it, there was just no question.
Because she'll
And-
go out and beat the crap out of people. You know that, right? To get them to
She'll-
help you. That's what you did to me.
She'll beat them with hugs and kindness and love.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I'm about. And so I just adore her. I absolutely do. And so it was actually universe. And I thank God and I thank the universe for bringing us together and for the path that, you know, and this journey that we're on. And it's just so beautiful. And it's unbelievably, I feel so unbelievably blessed. So,
together, you know, it's about bringing the people together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yes.
what we're about, is connecting. And, you know, like the neurosynaptic gaps and the neural pathways, everything has to come together inside the brain. Well, we have to do that in the community as well.
Yes.
Right.
And so that's where we need to, like, dignity, you know,
Or
rehabilitation.
neurorestorative.
Neurorestorative, who
Yeah.
lets us have a group there. And INSEP, who has, it's about bringing all of them together. Even in Reno, we have a connection that we met for brain. Her
Right.
name is Teresa Morrow, and her son died of a brain injury. And she started a support group there. So she even came, she was kind of my advocate when I
Right.
needed it, because I was so struggling with the
Well,
system.
you were going through some personal,
Right,
you know, traumas yourself,
right.
and trying to, you know, deal with all this. So
Yeah, I kept getting told, well, the mother's the problem, because I was so, you know, mama bear like.
Hands on.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I'm going to advocate. I'm going to tell you, and so I'm not the problem. You need to. No one knows him better than this one does.
Of course.
You know, it was so funny. So. She kept telling me, though, you need to back up a little bit. Let
Yeah.
me be your voice. If you need a voice, let someone else be that voice for
and
you.
and I understand that, but it's hard, you know, when it's your kid.
Yeah.
And or someone that you love, you know, it's like, try to keep me away.
Right.
Right.
You know, right?
Just keep trying.
But and you guys are working on a fundraiser, are you not?
Yeah, we're.
You got something coming up? That's cool.
We do. We have a karaoke caregivers night. So we actually call it Caregivers Karaoke, and it'll be our first event like that. And we're going to hold it because here's the theory. Mary has been doing the support groups, right, with. And then she broke the caregivers off, started breaking them off. And I kind of, that's my room, right? I go to the
Right.
caregiver room. So I kind of have been working with them, with that group, and we all been healing together and
Well-
sharing our resources and stuff. So I know from that
These
side,
are the people that are forgotten.
They
Right.
are forgotten.
Because, and not to take anything away from the patients or the person suffering.
Survivors.
But in any disease or anything, it's the caregivers are going through just as much
Yeah.
as whoever they're giving the care to.
Well, and when
we tend to forget that or overlook that from time to time.
Right.
And if those people get screwed, then the whole thing falls apart.
Right, and it was actually suggested in one of the brain injury support groups, how about if the caregivers, go off, and more I got to think about was like, oh my gosh, yes, they need it as
Yeah.
much as the survivors do, or the friends and family. And so that's about the time Christine kind of was coming along a little bit more, and it was just, oh, heaven sent that
Yeah.
we actually have got this going.
So I get to sit in there and help
Yeah.
what I love to do,
Yeah.
coaching and guiding and, just being.
Bossing people around.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not that. But I hope they don't feel I'm bossing
No,
them
no,
around.
no,
But,
no.
All with love.
always giving suggestions and encouragement, right? Because we can get down so far sometimes, and then we need to hear that voice that says, you got this, or what we have to
Right.
do. So that's how this kind of evolved, right? Is we want to make sure that we're acknowledging them, plus include their loved ones. So like my son Rick, he can go around and sell raffle tickets, or he can go around and just
Collect donations.
or sing.
Right.
He loves singing.
Yeah, I
right?
know.
So he's gonna have fun. And then I was thinking, I don't know if I told Mary or not. One of the things I really would love to do is give the have the survivors pick a song for the caregiver and sing it to them.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
How cool would that be?
That would be an awesome,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a good idea.
So it'll be kind of fun in that way,
Yeah.
like bringing them together at a different level. So that's coming up on Thursday, the 25th, 5 to 8, and it's at Midtown, and it's 953 East Desert Inn Road.
And we'll have the flyer up behind us there,
perfect.
so
Okay.
everybody can see that.
Oh,
We'll
thanks.
get this out. So
Okay, yes, that's coming up real soon.
Yeah.
So $5 donation gets them in the door with and a piece of pizza.
pizza.
Yeah.
Oh, pizza, singing. I'm there.
Yeah, couldn't go wrong, right? So thank you for asking. We also have a Facebook.
It's under Mary Langdon.
Yeah, it's under Mary Langdon, and it's spelled Langton.
DON.
Don. Dun, 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 dun. See, that's why Mary's here. Let's make sure we get it spelled right. So spell it again, Mary.
Langdon.
Do you have any relatives in Palm Springs, Palm Desert area?
Possibly one that has been a long lost one. I was the lost one.
What's his name?
No, I don't know for
Okay.
sure. From my understanding, the Langdon clan was pretty big,
Yeah.
but there's only a few of us left,
I-
as far
I-
as I know.
Used to work with a guy
Oh,
down
yeah?
there 100 years ago. So
I had a Robert Langdon call me out of the blue many years ago, and he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of so-and-so?" And it was like, "What did you say your name was?" And he said, "Robert Langdon." And I said, "You're a relative, and I don't even know you." So, no, I never went anywhere from there. But anyways, no, so he was searching out, and I never followed up on it.
Yeah.
I'm not really into that. Plus, I was dealing with so many other things, so.
So-
But yeah, we do have the fundraiser on Facebook.
Currently, we're gonna-
currently under my name,
Right.
Mary
and
Langdon.
We're going to be making a Facebook page strictly for Wealth of Natural Health and
Okay.
Brain
and brain injury.
So,
look for it.
I mean, do you have a GoFundMe or anything like
We
that
do.
set up yet?
We
or-
do have a GoFundMe along with the fundraiser under my name, but eventually they will all be under Wealth of Natural Health, Brain Injury Awareness and
Okay.
Education, because that's the name of the company. We do also have a website currently. It's www.wealthofnaturalhealth.org. Because this is a nonprofit. And then a email address that we have is braininjurynv, as in Nevada,
Right.
at Gmail.
And these
We'll
are
need
all
to
on your
leave these.
Facebook page as well, aren't they?
Yes, all this
I mean, all the
information.
contacts, because I went there to check it out, and,
Yeah.
and so,
Oh, good.
And the website is actually ever changing and growing,
Right.
just as we are. And there's
As
been
it
a
should
lot of,
be.
yes, absolutely. And there's been a lot of changes, a lot of great stuff that's been put on there. And one of the things I didn't want to forget is if it wouldn't have been for Neuro Restorative giving me a home in January to take all of these wonderful survivors that I have been in contact with for many years, we wouldn't have gotten this started. So in turn, tomorrow night is actually at Dignity Health Rehabilitation Hospital. Our first at the Dignity Health. And then Thursday.
And where is this located?
This is in Henderson, 2930 Sienna Heights. And it's actually the 3-story brand new rehabilitation hospital behind the Sienna campus in Henderson. And that's Wednesday night from 6 to 7:30 is the support group. And mind you, that's for the brain injury and caregivers. And then Thursday night will be at the Neuro Restorative from 5 to 6:30. And that address is 2785 South Rainbow Boulevard.
Okay.
Okay,
Is this
in Las
information on your
Vegas.
Facebook page or the website? Or
It is, I
Okay,
believe,
good.
most of it, or it's under the website.
Okay.
And then we've got the newsletter, you're looking at the first page of the newsletter, that will be hopefully posted there shortly.
Then I can get all that information from there and put it up here. So
And if you need it,
Yep.
Okay,
let me
cool.
know what you need. So the thing that we one of the things I think I want to bring up too. Well, first of all, tell them the dates of the support groups before we move any further, because there's the first and the
Can I say that just for a minute?
third.
Okay, the Neuro Restorative that we have on 2985, I think it's 2785 South Rainbow. But anyways, we usually have those support groups from Thursday night all the way through the end of the year. That's the first and third Thursday of every month at Neuro Restorative. So we have those, and then every third Wednesday at Dignity Health Rehabilitation Hospital in Henderson.
Just so the listeners,
Yeah.
you know.
So we actually have a location in Henderson, and a lot of our people have been coming to Las Vegas, live near the Henderson, so they're really excited. So we should start off with a pretty good sized group there.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that.
Good.
But like I said, that's the third Wednesday from
Okay, good.
6 to 7:30 at Dignity, and then Neuro Restorative is the first and third. And the one at Dignity will probably be increased also because they have so many different locations. There's a possibility that we have another support group or a day support group at the hospital eventually. So this is ever expanding, and all of our changes will be on our website.
Great.
So that's one of the important things, and probably one of the most important things is not only the support and the donation that you've given us, which we so dearly and greatly appreciate, but we've also had many others. For instance, Greens and Proteins, Healthy Juice. What is it? I'm sorry. It's Greens and Proteins Healthy Kitchen and Juice Bar. They provided some food for us and
Oh,
also
great.
some juices for
Great.
us, our group.
Came and set it all up.
Yep, came and set it all up. Patrick was just unbelievable. He's the owner, and they actually have 5 locations. So we're trying to stay in contact with them and have them do this a little bit more. And then also Brain and Body Yoga came in and has done some donating of showing the survivors and the caregivers of how to do some yoga that is very healthy, not only for the brain, and this is for anybody and everybody. It's
Right.
not just if you have a brain injury.
Right.
So it's absolutely amazing, and they're actually on Durango. And then we've also had the Neuro Restorative Dignity, yourself, and probably one of the most important things that I am so excited about that I've been working on this gentleman for about 6 months. I met him at an event at a church that I was going, the Verve Church on Dean Martin. And he came in, he knows the pastor there, and this gentleman that I'm talking about is also a pastor. He came in to do a motivational speaking, and when I heard his story, I was absolutely amazed at where the universe had brought me. And so afterwards, I snuck into the little private room and I said, Mr. Vernon Fox, do you know anything about brain injuries? And he looked at me and he says, oh God, yes, I do. I said, I'd love to talk to you. So yes, Mr. Vernon Fox, 8 years played in the NFL, has actually just recently came and observed our support group, has now decided to support and advocate for us. So
Oh, wow.
I am so excited about that. So his background, of course, like I said, 8 years of playing with the NFL. He has a brain injury, so he gets it. He explained to the survivors that he went through having the headaches and having, the dizzy spells and this type of thing, which I think most of us have experienced, the sleeping problems, the, total exhaustion, that type of thing. So he's able to connect with the survivors, and it was absolutely phenomenal to have him at the group last month, coming in and to observe. And I wanted to treat him like he was nothing special. So I brought him in. I didn't do this big introduction on his bio or anything. I just let him sit and observe. Nobody knew
Right.
who he was until the end, and then we explained who he was. And it was just absolutely beautiful the way it opened up. And he said to Christine's son, he said, "You are probably one of the most inspirational men that I have come across, because what Ricky has been through." And then one of our other survivors, Jerry Serrano, is very, very positive all the time. He actually fell, I believe, 9 feet and had a severe brain injury.
Whoa.
Many years in a coma, in a coma for several months, but many years of rehabilitation. And he, Vernon Fox looked at him and he said, "You are absolutely probably the most positive person that I have ever met in my entire life." So I feel so very blessed for having Vernon Fox step up and support us. And we're actually, the other thing before I forget, the Challenger newspaper is also for seniors and disability people, which we have a copy here. We'll be doing an article in August about not only Christine and I, but also about Vernon Fox and how we're all coming together. So this is the Challenger. So there will be an article in August. We're working on getting
Excellent.
that. Yep. So just all of that good stuff is just coming together, and it's actually really beautiful the way it's all opening up.
And this is
we're
basically just a grassroots group that you guys have started.
Yep.
Because I was going to ask, I haven't heard anything really specific from or about anybody in the medical profession.
Well,
I mean, is there anybody out there here in Las Vegas that's doing anything with
No.
this, or
no.
no one at all?
We are, from my understanding, the only brain injury support group in town, and
But
caregiver.
aren't there
There-
brain doctors?
There
or
are. None of them have the time or has made the time to be supportive of us, which
Okay.
is kind of a shame in a way. But I think eventually
maybe
when
I
they
can
see,
shame them into it.
well, exactly. But I think eventually when they see how serious we are and
Right.
how many people are really involved, because it's not just 1 or 2 that show up. We had 40 people last time.
But I mean, it's not just the doctors, but
Right.
you've got nurses, you've got support staff
Right.
that have to, I mean, they've got to be dealing with these patients in the hospitals and emergency rooms and things like that. Isn't there?
Well, and
There's got to
that's
be
a
somebody
door.
out there.
I think
That's a door that we're looking to open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eventually, that we're going to be in the hospitals and we're going to be at the doctor's office and we're going to bring this awareness. And that's part
Pull
of
it all
what
together.
I'm passionate about is we need to have this awareness, the brain injury awareness and education brought to this community because it is so needed. And there's been a lot of people that have been injured through brain injuries that you don't ever hear about. It's hush-hushed because there isn't any help. They've
Yeah.
gone out of state or, what have you. For instance, we have one gentleman who I believe was injured somehow or another. I don't know all the story. I don't need to know it. But I believe it happened in California. He was in a coma for 9 months. They took him out of state to a hospital in
While
another,
he was in a coma?
while he was in a coma to another state, and I won't name the state unless you want the information later. I'll be more than happy to. Within a few days, less than a week, they had him conscious again and actually moving his body and doing therapy, and it's absolutely been phenomenal. So eventually we will have facilities like that here, but it's all of the information that Christine and I are trying to bring together to make the awareness and get the education out there, whether it be the hospitals or the doctors, and to help Dignity or Neurorestorative or whoever might come here to town, any of the neurologists, to be able to know, oh, this is who you need to go to if you're looking for support,
Yeah.
or if you're looking for more education, that type of thing. We have a lot of military gentlemen too that have gone through.
I was just going to say, have you reached out to anyone out at the VA hospital?
We have. I have.
I think we're getting close.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're close. I mean, I've made some calls, and they know about me.
Move it for us.
So it's just a matter of time before we actually get that. And they've changed a lot of their requirements. They don't have the people necessarily in their facility actually doing the support group. What they're looking for is more of the peer support. Well, here I am.
Yeah.
So they were absolutely amazed at what I've been able to do. And so I'm waiting for a phone call back, actually.
We're going to have to take a quick commercial break.
Okay.
But when we come back, I want to talk to you, Christine, about some of the crap that you went through with Ricky and not, I mean, I know what you went through, and there's nobody out there. There was no support there for you. And
don't even talk about the support that was there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm learning that each person plays a certain role, and
Right.
that the disconnect is not knowing.
And that's it. Yeah. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and so we can pay some bills, because we got to do that. Otherwise, we can't go back here every day. So anyway, thank you, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, this is Hal Bray and Sergeant Tim Sutton with Heroes for Autism. Did you know that over half of 25-year-olds with autism stopped receiving health care after they left their pediatrician?
And almost half of those 25-year-olds with autism have never held a paying job.
Crazy Terry here with your car care tip of the day. Today's tips on cooling systems. This vehicle's got about 182,000 miles on it, so if you're checking the coolant, check the hoses too. Just feel them and see if they're soft or any signs of fatigue for the mileage on it. They don't feel bad, they look like they're still the original hose, but you want to make sure you don't go too long with these hoses, because they will eventually deteriorate, cause a problem. In this case, this car's got a visible leak. The customer brought it to us. We'll pop the hood and check the cooling system. First, we just relieve any pressure that might be on the cap, remove the cap, take a look inside. We see it's kind of low. Now we'll start our inspection. What we found on this one is the top tank is leaking. It's got a crack in it. Pretty common for these plastic radiators to do that. I want to get to a shop right away, because severe engine damage can result from overheating condition like this. In this case, it was pretty easy to see the crack was right on the top tank, but a lot of times we'll have to pressurize the system to locate the exact leak. Could be a hose in the back, could be underneath. Some of these are hard to find, but in this case, a very common leak, the top tank. When we're testing a cooling system, it's okay to use just water, but you want to make sure when you're filling it up properly, it's a 50-50 mix of antifreeze and water. It needs the water to make the chemical work, so don't just put straight antifreeze. 50-50 mix is the best way to go. Keep it clean, keep it rust-free. So as you can see, we got a pretty active leak. You got to get this fixed, or there's going to be some engine problems. If you're going to top off your own coolant, it's really not that hard. If you got a radiator cap, just make sure it's not hot. Take the cap off and take a look. In this case, we're pretty full here, but what we have is the overflow jugs empty. So we'll just add that. Once again, check your manufacturer's specs to make sure what type of coolant you have. In this case, we're using the good old green. There's gold, there's red, there's yellow, all types out there. Just want to make sure you're staying with your manufacturer recommended coolant. And that's really all there is to it. The cooling system is a major component. You'll want to service that regularly. If you have a problem, it could be too late and cost you thousands of dollars. If ever you have a problem, come into Sun Valley Automotive. It's no charge to look at your cooling system. This is Crazy Terry with your car care tip of the day.
Holy moly, you guys came back. That is so awesome. I'm always surprised every time you do that. You know, we go to a commercial break and I figure, that's it, they're going home. So anyway, and Christine and Mary stayed along too, so that's great.
Right.
But Christine, I wanted to talk to you a little bit, or I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about your experiences with the medical field here in Las Vegas with your son and what you went through, and you know, the good and the bad. What was positive, and what, you know,
Yeah,
what was it that made you pull your hair out?
yeah, and made me want to do something more. For
Yeah.
it, you know, because that's really what it came to. Well, you know, at the time, John, I had the wellness center, right? Luminosity Wellness
Luminosity
Center.
Wellness Center.
So I was blessed to have a really cool network of healing people or
Yes.
complementary support. The thing about Ricky, I think, and with anyone, it's about getting to know right away the possibilities. Like, okay, so they focused mostly on his leg, right?
Right,
And not on his brain.
right.
Like
Because
when-
he had a leg injury at the time as well. Yeah.
Right. So they didn't do any testing of his brain until October 13th. So it was September 28th that
Right.
he had his injury, and then October.
Almost 3 weeks later.
Yeah, he coded again. So it took 15 minutes to resuscitate him. So they decided.
So if he hadn't coded, they probably would not have tested for any
Right.
brain injuries.
Agreed. Yeah, and so they just kind of, and he was in a coma, in and out, and there were actually a few nurses who had the audacity, and we're gonna say it's lack of knowledge. Let me
Right.
go there.
Lack
all
of
right?
education.
That to tell me that my son was faking because he wasn't responding the way that he needed to.
Yeah.
And I thought, I didn't even know what a brain injury was.
Right.
I have had to learn. But that was like so bizarre to me. So that was like his fourth death at that time. And they did an MRI and discovered that he had anoxic brain damage. Well, then I knew how to speak to people, right? Because
Right.
I said, he has an anoxic brain injury. And then when he finally came out of the coma and he was talking and stuff, he garbled. I mean, the whole brain recovery was phenomenal. So there was no one coaching me along. It was me kind of coaching them along at the time, because they would walk into his room and they would expect that he should remember them. And I put a note. I finally got frustrated and put a note on his door that said, "Please reintroduce yourself to Ricky. My name is Rick. Please reintroduce yourself to me every time you enter my room."
Right.
Because he had no way of holding that.
Retaining the memories, yeah.
His memory from September, well, actually it was, he has no memory of the hospitals whatsoever. Okay,
Even today.
Even today. That's never returned to him. So from the hospitals all the way back to his birth, there's no memory of events.
So everything prior to the brain injury, there's no memory.
Wow. So like if you asked him what he got for Christmas, or who was at his graduation, or how many people, you can ask him any of these event-centered questions, and there's no memory. He didn't know me, really. I think at first I thought I wanted to think that he
Yeah.
knew me, but
Right.
it took months before he could even grasp that I was his mom.
Right.
And so, again, they weren't cluing me or anything, that this is normal, or, I'm just like, what's happening here? And then they took him off seizure meds, and because he had some his blood work wasn't right.
Right.
And so, he was in danger, so they took him off and he went into a seizure.
I remember that, yeah.
No one bothered to tell me, watch for a seizure.
Yeah.
I was watching TV and then, caught it out of the corner of my eye. So those kinds of things would have been very beneficial for me as his caregiver. I did most of the coaching and the.
But I mean, were they aware and just weren't communicating, or was it a lack of education
I
on
think
their
it's
part?
a lack of education in the medical field as to what happens. They're educated by the book.
Right.
They're not educated to reality.
Right.
And that's where we come in.
Well,
hopefully.
and if correct me if I'm wrong, but every TBI or is different. So
Every single one.
they're not two people could have the same brain injury but react differently. So there's
Every-
that on top of it. That's got to be tough too, trying to
Yeah.
figure out.
Every single brain injury is different. There's not one. Even if another person was thrown off of a horse and
Right.
hit
Yeah.
their
That's
head
what I mean.
on the
both
telephone,
both
they're-
hit upside the head with a club. and-
Exactly.
yeah.
But their body and brain are going to react differently.
Left side,
So-
right side, back,
Yeah.
front, wherever.
Exactly.
But in his case, an anoxic brain injury, it's the whole brain. So
But
it could be
and if you can clarify that is a lack of oxygen
Correct.
right. So
and coupled with trauma or
mostly
either or.
I think it's mostly just lack of oxygen,
Okay.
or like in a drowning situation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. Or carbon monoxide, where they're not breathing.
Right.
And so here's the brain, and there's certain parts that are quicker to get damaged
Yes.
than others, like
The
slower
frontal
to
lobe.
reach.
Right.
Yeah. And so his is memory for sure. And I watched him heal from the back. Oh, right here, good. She has a picture. I love that. So his brainstem area is what kept him on life support
Right.
because it wasn't functioning. And then as it began to function,
So this
months
would be,
later-
this is what was controlling the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah. So
Okay.
different parts as
Yeah.
they would come into play, we would experience different things. So it's fascinating. And then the where to go. One of the things, and I just want to plug that about Dignity. When I was talking to her, she is let's go from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
And where to go in between. That's what's been missing.
Gotcha.
So we would visit. We were in Mountain View, Sunrise. We were at we were at Health South, a rehabilitation
Right.
hospital, to Neuro Restorative, and then to NSEP. 5 different locations. When he was in the hospital, though, they came in Neuro Restorative, which is they could take him straight from the hospital.
Right. That's right.
And then there was INSEP, who could do 6 hours of therapy with him,
Day
or
program.
Neuro, who could do 3, and he wasn't ready. But I knew that because I spent the time with him, right?
Right.
But someone else might be ready. See that kind of dialogue isn't laid out either. Like,
None of the
Well,
doctors.
because they're looking at, this is what the insurance company says.
Right.
This is how we're supposed to proceed, and this individual may not fit that particular. I work with a group called Heroes for Autism.
Okay.
And so every autistic person is different
Right.
and is affected differently.
Right.
There are some commonalities, so I understand that. And so I can't treat you the same way I would treat you.
Right.
Correct.
Whether medically or even trying to relate to you. So
I think one of the coolest things was they let me stay. I stayed. I lived at the
24/7?
hospital.
Yeah.
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 They let me stay, and that helped a lot because they couldn't. I mean, they were really, especially in ICU,
Yeah.
they were so busy they couldn't take care of his needs, and I would. I didn't mind, and so that was a cool part that they have that.
well, I can just picture them trying to get you to leave.
Escorting her out. They would
At
have
that
to
time,
drag her out.
It was like, I would not be want to be the person that tells her, you got to go now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I probably would have bunked out in the
Yeah.
in the waiting room. You're
Yeah.
right, but because the caregiver, the person that is there, can report so many different things to them that they miss and stuff.
Exactly.
So I think it's good to encourage that. We
Well,
don't have.
okay, so if the nurse comes in, checks him out, blah, 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 all the vital signs are good, yeah, he says, they respond to this, and then she leaves, and 5 minutes later, he has a seizure.
Right.
And she comes back in 30 minutes and has no clue that he's had a seizure.
Right.
Correct.
And so, yeah, that's so it is it, I'm not sure how I'm asking, or if I'm asking this question correctly, but do you feel that maybe there should be like a 24-hour, round-the-clock visual,
Absolutely.
Especially on
somebody
brain
watching
injury.
them?
Absolutely. They call it intensive care unit, but really what's the intensive care when it comes to a brain injury? There isn't somebody 24/7 monitoring.
No, they're just watching. They're watching
Exactly.
the stats, the life signs, and on the monitor and all that crap. And they're not,
Exactly. But they
yeah.
don't have anything for the brain to show the brain waves or what it's doing at the time, which is what I really like where Dignity Health Rehabilitation Hospital, they have the computer programs that when they're doing their therapy, that the brain is reteaching, let's say there's been some paralysis on, the left side or so, that the computer helps the brain to reteach the left side to move.
Right.
And so they
By
need
moving it.
something like that. And I don't know, enough about it or enough to advise, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that can help us bring this together because it does need to be like a 24/7 monitor, because if they can't do the person because the insurance isn't going to pay for it, then there's got to be some kind of program or, computer, monitor that is videoing that person 24/7,
Yeah.
to where a doctor can go back and look at it and take their textbook knowledge. Because believe me, I'm not criticizing the doctors in the hospitals. I think they do a wonderful job for what they've been educated for. We're just trying.
That's the key right there for what they've been
Exactly.
educated for, and
Exactly.
it's a lack of knowledge and it's a lack of
Exactly.
education,
Yeah.
and the thing that kind of amazes me is that we're not farther along in this.
That's-
I mean, I majored in psych in college, and that's been 100 years ago, and I remember one of the things that we were studying was at one point in time, people with epilepsy.
Right.
One of the treatments was they did the split brain, because the brain is tied together, and they split that in half, and so the two sides were functioning independently without the. And one of the tests they did is they had a little thing where you put your hand in there and you feel an object, and then you have to pick it out in a picture. And
Right.
because one's left brain, one's right brain,
Right.
and they couldn't they couldn't tell you whether they were holding a pen or a piece of paper. They knew what it was on the one side, but they couldn't point to the right picture.
Right. For instance, I was sent
So
to.
that's been, 50 years, 60 years ago.
Right.
And
We
this is
haven't
it?
come, exactly. We have come a long way in 20 years, but for instance, I was sent to University of Irvine, California to be tested for my brain injury because there's studies going on there.
Yeah.
There's American medical journals. There's Dr. Joseph Wu is the one that actually did 6 hours of testing on me. And it was found that the memory that I had, which I failed horribly, and it was like, how can I be this person and I can't remember what I just saw a second ago. And it just blew me away as to, wow, just the awakening that I had
Right.
within myself. And somebody in Ricky's situation is never going to have that. That's why I feel very fortunate to have gone through what I have gone through, the journey that I've been on, because I think I'm the person that can take this from point A to point B and explain to these doctors that, it literally blew me away. And nobody was sitting there telling me this is what you needed to do, there was not one of my doctors that I saw, and mind you, I saw 6 doctors before I was actually diagnosed with the brain injury, but none of them ever said what you can do to heal. They all said you have short-term memory loss and you have cognitive function loss. And so I said to them, okay, so what does that mean? How do I heal from that? And they said, well, I can't tell you that. I can only diagnose it. And it was like,
We can tell you what's wrong, we can't tell you what to do.
exactly. So what's wrong with this picture here? And so that's where my research really started to come in. So the fortunate part about that, in my research, I somehow or another came across this doctor's name, Dr. Daniel Amen, 3 different times, and finally it clicked. Oh, maybe I need to look at this gentleman's website,
Yeah.
right? Well, it blew me away, the information that he had on his website. Come to find out, he was the consultant on the movie Concussion, which Will Smith starred
Right.
in. Come to find out, I didn't know this until June when Vernon Fox came in. He was actually had a scene in that movie. He can't watch it to this day because it disturbs him so much. So CTE, the part that they studied in that movie, has come a long way. And that's where the football players have now in NFL have finally stepped up. And I think the last I heard last year was the NFL donated something like $40 million to the study of CTE. Well, what about all the other? It's not just CTE, the continual impacts on the brain. There are many other brain injuries that need to be studied. And so great that University of Irvine is studying this. Dr. Daniel Amen is very involved in this, and actually he's done more brain scans than any other doctor in the world, so he needs to be commended. And he was actually donating. I almost forgot about him, and he was one of the first actual doctor who stepped up and started donating. He started donating to our support group 3 years ago, and simply because I had done the research and found out what an awesome person he was and the studies that he had, that I contacted his company and I said, would you consider donating to our support group? And they have for 3 consecutive years now.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So to follow up on your question, right? Some of the stuff that we did, we got him singing lessons, art lessons.
Right.
Mary Medley came to the house and did art classes with him. So we kept him in intense therapy all this time, even to today. We still are always, and you will be amazed. I mean, I think you got to meet the Rick that walked in today.
And it was because I haven't. It's been a year. I think it's been a year since the last time I saw you. Maybe a little longer. I think so. And yeah, a completely different person.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely different person.
Hasn't
Well, he's the same person,
Right.
but he's
He's
It's
come a
actually
long way.
his
a
new
long way.
norm. It's his new norm.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have to teach these survivors is this is your new normal. This is your new life. This is who you are now. What-
Okay, so that brings up a question on my part. Is the input of information
Right.
that's what is valuable. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is the more stimulus, the more
Right.
input that they can receive, is this a norm, or is this just in this particular case, or do we know?
It is becoming much a bigger topic and study.
Okay.
Neuroplasticity.
Yes.
So it's true for all of us, not just a
Oh,
brain,
yeah, no,
right?
yeah, it
Right.
makes sense.
But, and with them especially though, because they have to, the brain is just rewiring itself after and after.
And music and art are two of the most
Absolutely.
valuable stimulants for
Right.
us, for our brains.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And that's one of the things as a survivor I can sit here and tell you too. There was many a songs that I connected with, and it got me through those little steps of being really down on myself. I never was going to amount to anything, after my brain injury and all of that. And then I became a person to where I advocated for myself, and I actually searched out things that would help me, including going, and I became a diabetic lifestyle coach because all of a sudden I had diabetes because all I was doing was feeding that little comfort,
Yeah.
and feeding that and gaining a lot of weight. And so once I went through that class and became certified diabetic lifestyle coach, I learned how to eat again. And that for me was probably the most important thing that I ever did for myself, was change totally what I was eating, because I found the different foods that actually affected my brain, that affected the memory, affected the how you felt, what made you feel good, or what made you spiral out of control, almost like a mental illness. And it was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the research that I put myself through. And like I said, there was no doctor guiding me there. I had some very good doctors, and one particular doctor, I will stand here and say, even on my deathbed, he literally kept me walking because I had 8 herniated discs in my neck and back. And he's a chiropractor studying to be an MD. And at the time that I came to him and was referred to him, he said to me, because he had been studying neurology, and he
Right.
said, did anybody ever say to you that you have a brain injury? And I looked at him and I said, no. And he was the one at that time. So I was very fortunate to have found him, and then for him to keep me walking for 3 years. And now I couldn't walk 100 feet 3 years ago. I'm now walking 1.5 miles every day, 5 days a week.
That's more than I can do.
Yeah. So I mean, and the weight that I've lost, and just the whole confidence, of the new norm that I have found in my life, and the new life purpose has just absolutely been amazing.
I
So,
think this would be a question better suited to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's self-perpetuating? In other words, every time you get one step forward and
oh, thank you
every
for
little win.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it was literally for years. I would take what I felt was 1 step forward and 10 back.
Yeah.
I would take another step forward, or maybe 2 steps forward, and I'm thinking, okay, I got this now. And it would throw me back another, 10 feet or 15 feet or whatever. That was continual. And why I kept this fight up, I will never know, but something inside of me knew that I had to keep going down this journey in this path because there was bigger, better things out there for me. And I'm absolutely amazed at where I'm at now and where I am today. And like I said, in November it'll be 6 years since I had my car accident.
And I've never met you before until
Right.
today, and meeting you and knowing you and talking with you, I would never have guessed that you had multiple brain injuries or anything at any time.
Thank you.
So, you know, I don't know if that was a compliment or not. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that,
it is.
that,
It is.
that.
Yeah, I take it as a compliment because a lot of people, and even some higher up people that know neurology and know brain injuries have even said that they would never expect it.
Yeah.
And not, what's the word? I'm sorry. Anticipated it or by looking at me.
Right.
But then again, that takes me back to what does a brain injury look like really? Right?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, if you look really close, you can see different things that might have happened in the, you know, horse accident and having a splitter this thick go through your cheek and I have the scar still. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But those are all visual things. And what do you see as a brain injury? What does a brain injury look like? Nobody really knows.
It's invisible.
Even looking at Ricky, you cannot see. So it is an invisible injury. And that's the hardest thing too. And one of the things that we've gone through in the support group was educating the community. Like I used to go into a particular store, and if I didn't get the proper customer service, I would fly off the handle and I would cuss them out, and I'd go to the manager. I can't even get customer service here? I can't even get a smile on the clerk's face? What is this? And I would make a scene, and then I realized, whoa, that's part of my brain injury that's bringing out all this anger.
Yeah.
You know, and so I need to deal with that. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It truly, truly has. But thank you for saying that, because I take that as a compliment.
Well, good. I meant that,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it was just that when you sat down here, we talked a little bit about before the show, but when you sat down here and started saying that you had multiple brain injuries, it was just like, whoa, I never would have expected
Yeah.
that at all.
Yeah.
So,
And that's
Been an amazing journey.
yeah. So our end game, there's always an end game to everything.
I would
And-
hope so.
Yeah, right. So some of our motivation and determination is to bring a brain training clinic to Las Vegas, to where people can come there and continue to work on their brain recovery. So a lot of times they go from
And grow
surviving
it.
to thriving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I
At
do.
some point, they have to accept that I'm no longer just surviving. I'm actually thriving, because two of them are sitting in the studio today who are
Absolutely.
thriving.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not really about that. So we got to help them also kind of convert that surviving into thriving, to continue to move forward. And then a long-term facility. Right now, we don't have a long-term facility for neuro patients at all. They go to Kindred and a few of these other, long-term facilities. The problem,
Wait, to Kindred?
yeah, it's like a long.
Yeah,
what
I
do
know
they
what
call
Kindred
those?
is.
They
It's
call
a-
them.
Well, exactly. And the
Yeah.
unfortunate part is
They
they
get
go
shipped there.
They go there to die
Yeah.
because nobody knows how to make them better.
And they have no
That
family
is so sad.
Or advocate to
Yes.
stand up for them. So we want to change that.
Yeah.
We need to have neuro units at these facilities, so that they can come to their full potential and beyond. But just leaving them lay there, or just meeting their needs for insurance. So Medicare currently is not supporting any long-term facility or help to brain injured people.
No shit.
No
Yeah.
shit. Sorry.
Isn't that amazing?
Right? It's not happening. And so
They're looking at their bottom line, unfortunately, and they don't see brain injury as ever being able to amount to anything. And if you could see me 3-4 years ago to see me today, oh my gosh, there's a world of difference. And I'm just using myself as an example
Right.
because of,
No, I like I said,
yeah,
I know Ricky,
Yeah.
know, and I see the amazing transformation that he's made. Way to go, dude.
exactly.
So-
And I never would have expected you to have gotten back this far, with the leg and everything. And I know you go around kicking everybody's ass all
Yeah.
over town, but no.
yeah, no, he's he's a walking miracle.
Yes.
And people find it hard to believe that, and we're okay with him never having his memories of his past.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
okay. We get to fill in all the gaps, and we get to create.
So you can
the
make
man-
stuff up.
I got to reparent my kid. I get to make stuff up. And at first I started to play with that, and I had to stop because
Oh,
it really
yeah.
wasn't
No,
fair.
yeah, no.
But One other thing we would like, so Ricky would love to eventually be, living on his own, and it would be nice if we had like residential, long-term residential places for brain injured people to live and commute together, and that they get support, and so that they could continue to thrive.
Similar to Veterans Village.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody just to watch them and guide them,
Yep.
and let them grow however
You
they
guys
can
got
grow.
your work cut out for you.
Yeah, but you
For
know what?
now.
From where it has come, from where I can see it, even if I'm at a very old age, and Christine and I are not too far apart in age, but I mean, even if we end up living another 20 years and we can get this, so be it. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just going to absolutely be awesome. And I think we're what is the word I'm looking for, where you're
Oh yeah, blazing the trail.
blazing the trail.
Yeah.
And I absolutely look at that, because I look at where I've come, from in just these few years. And the other thing I might want to say too is somebody who's had a brain injury, for instance, like with me, for all those years, I never let it hold me back because I didn't know how it affected me. So somebody else who may have gone through a lot of this, and I was very successful in my own right. I had 3 sons, and I raised them on my own as a single parent. I had a very good marriage at one point, financially, supported me. And so I was able to do that and still work full time. And I had a full-time business, a part-time business that I owned, worked full time, and had a nice, huge house that I owned, have my sons help me remodel it. So I didn't have a not successful life.
Yeah.
I just had a life that, whoa, when I found this out, that was why I didn't maybe ever get really successful, in my younger years or whatever.
We know a lot of people. We know a lot of people who have no idea they've had brain injuries. I
Right.
know, even in talking with her, I've had a few. Banging my head, falling off gyms, getting in car accidents. Those were, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you get in there, they're going to find some brain injury in
Well,
there.
and how is success measured too? That takes
Right.
me to that issue, or even abundance. Somebody said something to me about one time about the abundance that you have, and it doesn't mean that that's money. I
That-
have an
and
abundance of
that's absolutely
knowledge.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you really think about it that way, I mean that's where, like with what Christine said, is that we're thriving in this, and we're blazing the trail, and we're learning what we need to learn to bring this awareness to our community. And it's all about our community. It truly is all about our community, because we want to be able to help the people. We don't want them to to like we've had to
And,
struggle.
and, and of course, we'll do what we can to help.
Thank
Right.
you.
So,
Yeah, and-
so
if
much.
we can offer some studio time or something, as
Oh.
if you're doing raffles or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and, you can raffle off an hour of studio time or something like
Oh
that
yeah,
for us. and-
John, we need one for the 25th. You want
Okay,
to do one?
yeah,
You want
absolutely.
to do one? Come too,
I
please.
All
right.
I think I can get out of here in time
Okay.
to make that.
Perfect.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about
It's
the
just down the street.
2020.
So in March of 2020, we're going to have a big, like a brain injury awareness
Event.
right? Where we're going to bring all the organizations and all the nonprofits and the corporations, all of us together.
That'd be awesome.
Like we used to do.
Right.
And we're going to do one March 2020 to have, because
Do you have a location yet?
we're working on it.
Oh, okay,
I have one in mind, but if you have one, let me
Okay,
know.
I'll send you one
Okay.
too, so.
And we're seeing
March.
clearer.
We're seeing clearer to help bring a better awareness to the brain injury community.
Yeah.
And that's our motto and it's going to be March 21st of 2020. So we're absolutely excited to get that going. And, we do have a lot of good big companies that are on our side that I've already talked to, but then I realized I needed to take a step back, and we needed to get our nonprofit papers. And so we're weeks
Completely
away.
finished.
Critical.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
weeks
Yeah.
away from actually getting our nonprofit status to be a non-tax exemptable or exempt nonprofit, which
Legal.
is, I am so
501c3.
very good. Thank you. So I'm so excited about that, because that is huge for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of good things continuing to happen for us.
One of the things that I'm realizing that we need is a lawyer to help these
Alexis
patients.
Brown.
We need someone who wants to really help, that they're passionate about it.
Right.
Maybe Alexis Brown is the one, but they
Do you know
have,
Alexis?
I met her, I think,
Okay.
through you. it has to be. These people don't oftentimes have money. Like my
Right.
son is living off of like $500 a month. They don't have a lot of money.
Right.
The actual survivors, and but they lose their rights to their children. They lose their everything because they're in the process of recovery.
Right.
And there's no one to go fight for
Okay,
them.
so I'm thinking my brain's working sometimes. The court system, the judicial system here has what they call CASA, C-A-S-A.
That's
Yeah.
for
They are
children.
they're the child advocates,
Right.
and so that's what you need. You need an
Something
organization
similar.
or something like that. I know someone that's tied in with them. I will get you his information. He might be able to help you set up something like that to advocate for
That-
Good.
That's
to
good.
appear in court for these people
Yes.
and do stuff like that and look out for their best
Yes,
interests.
yes.
They're not attorneys, they're just volunteers, and their only job is to look out for the children's best interests.
Right, and we need that for the disabled. And I know they have a place here I went there actually, and in Seek to get help for Ricky. He didn't qualify or whatever. Something happened that it didn't, that it was, and he really needed an attorney, And
I remember that.
Yeah, and
I-
do you remember that? And
Yes, I do.
And there wasn't one. So we need someone, an attorney that can say, you know what, we understand and we want to help and we can put this all together because I hate to see people losing everything when they've lost their life the way they knew it.
Yeah.
And they're rebuilding. And, sometimes they get super, super down and super depressed, and it's hard to help them find their way back up when there's no hope.
No
So
kidding.
we gotta keep the hope alive, keep the connections going, and the support, and people like you that are helping us. So
Yes,
thank you
so
so
thank you
much.
again.
Well,
And-
like I said, Beth and I are willing to help whatever we can do to help, and
Thank
we'll after when we get finished here in just a couple minutes, we're going to do something here. I because we're running out of time. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I know. I know.
So
Thank
let's
you.
The website again, maybe?
We'll have that on the
Yeah.
screen.
Okay.
You don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
But what is something that's really important that you want to make sure that we make clear to the people out there today?
I think most importantly that we need donations. We need their funds to be able to get out there and do more of this. And if I can maybe say just a little bit, put yourself in a situation that you have no idea of what to do, and all of a sudden it happens in your family
Yeah.
or to yourself, and you are completely lost. And don't know what direction, don't know what doctor or hospital or support group to go to. That's where we come in. So the funds that are donated come in, and that's what they're used for, is strictly
Resources
for
and,
that.
Right now we don't have a location. We're operating at the support groups, which we wanted to start there.
Right.
It's an important place to begin. It's not a place that we can really grow. We can't bring people in and help them further along,
Right.
So eventually a clinic, a center, so that we can bring the proper testing into Las Vegas as well. We're missing some real important testing parts, so a clinic where
Okay.
we can do some research.
Yes.
Right? So donations and communications and
It's not-
cooperative just work with us.
But
Let's all
not
work
just
together.
and donations can include time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Volunteers
volunteering
or funds
and
or
that kind of thing. Yeah, money, of course. But-
even medical equipment, if I might say. I had a
Oh,
person
yeah, yeah.
actually donate, what was it, 2 walkers that we had, and there was many other things like bed pads or even Depends
Right.
for one that was bed bound
Right.
and this type of thing, and they were just amazed, oh my gosh, yes, I'll take that.
Every little
So
bit
for
helps.
instance, somebody that's clearing out their garage because their grandmother might have died that used Depends, we need that kind of donation. So, just don't throw it away, get in contact with me, and there's actually parts on our, under support on our website that
Okay, I
you
was
can
going
go
to ask
in.
you if there's, you can go in there and,
You can go in and tell us what you have as far as what items to donate, and so you can go in there, and we'll come and look at it. So.
And we're in the learning stages of a
Yeah.
nonprofit. Neither one of us have ever done a nonprofit. So if you have vital information,
I got
resources,
some contacts that I'll shoot over your way.
contacts,
Yeah.
people who want to spend time with us to help us really build that foundation so
Right.
that is
Right.
is held over time,
Right.
And not just
And let me also give SCORE a big shout out,
Oh,
because
yeah,
the
SCORE.
gentleman at SCORE, Bob Cushman, who has actually helped me, he's taken me from, I looked at him and I said, but I don't understand this, Bob. I took your class, but I'm not putting two and two together. What's the next step that I need to take in order to get these files, these papers completed? And he took me step by step. So he's been
Excellent.
absolutely phenomenal.
That's awesome.
And that's SCORE, and that's, they actually help nonprofits.
Right, and small business.
And
yeah,
small
SBAs
businesses,
and
yeah.
stuff like
and
So even brain injury.
Linda, how do you pronounce Linda's last name? Do you know
Oh,
Linda?
Linda
Laughing Yoga?
Torkis?
Oh,
Torkis?
yes, yeah.
Yes, she has
I-
been
she's-
phenomenal.
She's terrific.
She's
And I
on the
had-
board,
Oh,
and
good.
she's
Yep.
helping us
Good,
with
good.
all her wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
And I've had
and-
another friend, Carolyn Custer, who
Mm-hmm.
actually got me started with doing the newsletter and did a lot of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
I needed help with, because I couldn't do the support group and the newsletters and all this other stuff. So
Right.
we've had a lot of people step up.
And
yes.
we've got a website guy that's been helping,
Ryan,
do
yeah.
bottom line, like
Ryan
what given
Hutchinson.
Right,
what he
right,
could,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan has
Hutchinson,
been Hutchinson.
yeah. And we're
been
actually
Hutchin-
having our first board meeting this evening.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. It's being held at my home, and I put together some little goodies, and so we're actually having it. And we have like almost a 10-page agenda that we
Wow.
need to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of stuff that we're really growing. And you said something about, that it's going to be a long time. It's really actually a lot of stuff has come together really quickly.
That's great.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
great.
Thank
and
you
I
so
think
much.
the biggest motivator is making a place for my son.
Yes.
That he can be the face of when people walk in.
And
that
it's
he's
funny
the
that you
greeter.
should mention that, because before we wrap this up, we've been talking about Ricky. Come on up,
on.
man.
Come on, Ricky.
Come on.
Show your beautiful, handsome face. This is a gorgeous man
Over
on the
right here.
inside and out.
Beautiful and handsome. That's nice,
Yes,
guys.
yes, you are. You are so loved, dude.
So, this is well, he's my eldest son, and the one that is the miracle of my life.
Yep.
Yeah, and so
Thank you.
this is the face I want you to meet when you come into when we end up in our location. He'll be greeting you and showing you around to the library.
His jokes aren't that great,
yeah,
but
I'm working on it.
and
But
the
you know what? He's
kids-
got a heart full of gold and so much love to give. He is really a phenomenal man. When I first met him, I was blown away. I said to Christine, he is such a beautiful, bright light. And this was before I even knew.
and it's a shame that something like that has to happen.
Wasn't me.
Yes.
Yeah.
In order to bring this all together.
No.
yes.
I mean,
Oh.
this is how we should be all the time.
Exactly.
And too many times it takes something like that before we realize what's important,
Right.
and all the crap that we have to go through, and just don't be jerks.
Yeah.
Don't be mean.
Just that. Yeah, don't be
Don't
mean.
be mean, yeah.
So
Just
anyway,
remember, love.
I'm sorry, but we got to wrap it up.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to see you. I'm so glad that you had a chance to come in and tell us about this, and we could help you get the word out, dude. Good to see you again.
Good to
man.
see you too, buddy.
John, thank
I'm a
you
hugger,
so much.
everybody.
Oh,
Thank
hey,
you.
my pleasure.
Love you.
Okay,
Yeah,
folks,
Beth.
like I always say, thank you for watching us and supporting the station and everything that we do here. And if you're going to do it with styles.
That's right.
That's right. Thank you.
Nice work, John.